So let's do Parshas Korach on page 820 to 821. So it begins by saying, Vayikach Korach ben Yatzir ben Kahas ben Levi. It tells us that Korach, whoever this fellow is, he's the son of Yitzhar, son of who's a grandson of Kahas, the great-grandson of Levi. He says, Vayikach, he took. He took something. So, everybody wants to know, what does it mean that he took something? So the first thing we have to understand is the Torah is telling us a bit about the personality of Korach. Korach was a taker. In other words, that the world is filled with two kinds of people. There are givers, there are takers. There are those people who give, even when they're taking, they're giving. And there are people who take, even when they give, they take. How does that work? When you go to a store and they say, first 500 people get a free battery, right? They're not giving you a free battery, right? They're getting you to buy something. So they're giving you something, but they're really taking. That's not really giving. And then a person who gives, even when they're taking, is the opposite. That's like when your kid comes home from school and he makes an ashtray for you for a gift. So first thing is, you don't smoke. You don't know anybody who smokes. So what are you going to do with an ashtray? Second thing, it's not much of an ashtray. It's all crooked and everything. So, but what do you do when they give it to you? You make a big deal out of it. Oh, it's so beautiful. It's so nice. Look at this beautiful ashtray you gave me. Why? Because what you're doing is you're taking the ashtray, but you're really giving. You're giving much more to the child by making a big deal out of it than you're getting, because you're getting a piece of clay that's not even a good ashtray, and you don't even need an ashtray. Right? So here's an act of taking that's really giving. So Korach was a taker. That's why it says Vayikach Korach. It started taking. And Rashi says it. He says Vayikach Korach. What does it mean that Korach took? How do you bring in a parsha? Where does a parsha start with? That he took. What is that? He says Lakach es atzmo l'tzadachad. He took himself on one side. Right, he separated himself from everyone else. He put himself on one side in order to start up with the Jewish people. But it says he took himself, because everything about himself was taking. And you'll see through the Parsha that's all he does. Korach becomes famous as a person who starts fights. He makes arguments. Why? Because he wanted power. He was jealous. He felt that he should have become the next in charge, and he wasn't. And he felt that Moshe was doing nepotism, where Moshe was making it that all his family got jobs, but nobody else got jobs. And Korach felt that he should get a job, right? And he didn't. So instead of saying, I should get a job, right, which doesn't sound good, because Korach's no dummy, he would say, you're taking too much. Look at all these people. Everybody is special. Everybody is holy. Why should you get every work? He says, Rav Lechem, you've got enough already, right? Let other people have something. He doesn't say, let me have something, but that's really what he means. He wants to become the leader. And who's he with? So it says he's with Dathan and Aviram, Bnei Eliav. So Dathan and Aviram are with him, right? And they're sons of someone named Eliav. And who else is with him? On ben Peles, a guy named On ben Peles, Bnei Reuben, who came from the tribe of Reuben. So this is his group. He's got like a posse, right? He's got a group of people, and he's in charge, and these are the people who are with him. Dathan and Aviram we've already heard about. Dathan and Aviram were two people who were prophets. There were many prophets in those days, and they were prophesizing that Moshe is going to die before they go to the land of Israel, and Yoshua hears about it. He's very upset. So already these guys we know they're not part of the party. They like to be their own way. They're going to say what they want to say, even if it's destructive. And then you have this other person here named On ben Peles. Now, On ben Peles, what's the interesting thing about him is that he's never mentioned again. On ben Peles is mentioned as one of the people, together with Dathan and Aviram, and of course Korach, who are part of Korach's group, his inner circle. But as the parsha goes on, On ben Peles is never referred to again. Dathan and Aviram are, everyone else is, but this one fellow is not. And everybody always asks the question, how come he's not raised again? He's not brought up. Because we know what happens to everybody. All of the people who follow Korach, 250 people at least, they get killed. The earth opens up and swallows them. They're killed. And we know that when they offered the fire later on, you'll see that the people who were not chosen, they were killed because they were going against Moshe. But this guy On ben Peles is never mentioned again. He's not mentioned among those who are left alive, those who are still fighting, those who died. You don't see his name anymore. So the commentaries say this is a proof of It says, Chachmas Nashim, the wisdom of women, Bona Besa, they build their homes. That's what it says. How is the fact that On Ben Peles is ever heard of again? Because it's tell you that women who are wise women build homes. It doesn't mean they build houses. It means homes, right? There's a difference between a house and a home. They build homes. What is it? Why? Because the Medrash tells us On Ben Peles, right, wanted to be part of the revolution against Moshe. He wanted also to be a person who's going to have a special job. He wants to be a leader, right? He was a politician. And you don't see him again because as the story goes, Moshe tells them, "Oh, you want to start up with Aaron? You want to be, you want to start up? So everyone should take some spices and put it in a pan, light it on fire. The one that Hashem wants will accept. Everybody else is going to die." So On Ben Peles tells his wife, that's me. I'm going to be the one. I'm going to go down there with my spices and I'm going to light it on fire and I'm going to get picked. And she says, "Dummy. What are you? You're silly. This is worse than Russian roulette. Russian roulette, you're 1 out of 6, right? A bullet, 1 out of 6 can kill you. In this case, you're 1 out of 250. There's 250 people going down there, right? And you're 1 of 250. So you think you're going to get picked? You're not going to get picked. You know what's going to happen to you? If Moshe is in charge, you're still under Moshe. If Korach's in charge, which is really what Korach wants, you're under Korach. Either way, you're only a second-rate guy. So why are you putting your life on the line? You're going to get killed. Right? It's not worth it. So she talks him out of it. So but he says, "Look, they're going to come pick me up. We're going to go do this tomorrow morning. Right? It's the night before. They're going to come get me to go with them." So she says, "You don't worry about that. I'll take care of that." So it says that she gave him liquor and he got drunk and fell asleep. And then she sat outside her tent and she was doing work. And it says that she uncovered her hair. And so that the men who were coming to get him, just because they were rebelling against Moshe, they didn't think that they weren't observant. So they didn't want to go close to her because they understood that if she's got her hair uncovered, then she doesn't expect people are going to come around, right? A woman who, a woman is walking around her house in her house coat. That's because no one's coming over. If suddenly she'd go in her backyard maybe to do the gardening, that I could understand. But she wouldn't go in the front yard because she wouldn't want to be seen in public like that. So this woman is sitting in the front yard with her hair uncovered, so they're presuming she doesn't want to be seen, so they stay away. When they call out for the husband, they come from a distance. He doesn't come because he's drunk and sleeping. So she saves him, right? You compare this to Korach's wife. Korach's wife, the Medrash says, used to egg him on. She'd say, "Korach, I married you. You're such a big shot. How come this guy Moshe gets to do everything and you're a nobody? Go out there and go do something." So he goes and he starts up with Moshe. So the difference between On Ben Peles' wife and Korach's wife is the difference between life and death. On Ben Peles' wife was a perfect example of what the Torah says, and Rashi explains when it says that when a woman was created, it says that Hashem created her as Ezer Kenegdo. Ezer Kenegdo means a helpmate, right? Somebody you can rely on. Kenegdo, against him. So when Adam had Eve, wanted a woman. So God created a woman. What is the woman? She is someone to rely on, right? A man can rely on his wife, but she's against him. That means that she doesn't necessarily do what he wants. So how can you be someone you can rely on and be against them? If somebody's against me, I can't rely on them. They'll purposely not be there when I need them because they're against me. So that's not what it means. What it's saying is, if what the man is doing is right, so you can rely on your wife to help you. But if the man's doing something wrong, you can rely on your wife to tell you. Right? And she's going to tell you this is not right. So that's what that On's wife did. He told her, "Listen, don't get this into your head. You're going to be a big shot. Get all excited. The guys are getting you all excited, and you're going to become the head of the Jewish people. That's not happening. Right? All you're going to do is die for nothing. So don't do it." So, right, and so she saves his life. Korach's wife, on the other hand, she's not an Ezer Kenegdo. Ezer Kenegdo, right? You can rely on her, and if you're doing wrong, she'll help set you straight. That's what she did. But Korach's wife, she makes him do wrong, and he ends up dying because of it, with her whole family. So here you see the difference between the two, and that's what the Medrash says. So that's why you never hear from On Ben Peles again, because he drops out. He becomes one of the other people. He's not going to get involved anymore. He sees what happens, and he listened to his wife. Right? So it says, "Vayikumu Lifnei Moshe, they stood up to Moshe, V'nashim b'nei Yisrael chamishim v'tayim. They had 250 of them who went to fight against Moshe. And they went and they told him, Rav Lechem, you've got enough. You and Aaron, you've got enough. You take all of the honor, all of the leadership positions you take for yourself. Aaron's your brother, right? All of your family you give positions to, and we have nothing. It's enough. So Moshe says, comes back to them. Interesting. First thing it says that Moshe falls on his face. It says he falls on his face. Why does he fall on his face? Well, that's a sign of totally giving up. There's if one of us have a disagreement, so we can find the point of disagreement and we can discuss it, right? But if I say something's black and you say it's white, there's no discussion. It's just totally different. There's no way of talking. If I say this is dark gray and you say it's medium gray, so okay, we have something to talk about. We can work it out. That's a question of how you view it. But if I say it's black and you say it's white, there's no discussion there. So they come to Moshe. They say to him, "Listen, Moshe, you taken all these things for you. You're such a big shot. You have such an ego. You have to be in charge of everything." Right? So Moshe just falls on his face. How am I supposed to argue with that? Why? Because we already were told Moshe is the most humble of all people that ever walked the earth. So how can a guy who's the most humble of all people have an ego that's so big that he takes all the jobs, right? So so we need to understand that. First thing is, we know Moshe, the Torah tells us, Moshe was just a little while ago with the story with Miriam, that he is the most humble of all people who ever lived, and God trusts him totally because he's so humble. So if he's so humble, then what is he doing really being the head of the Jewish people? Shouldn't he not do that? If you're humble, a humble person doesn't do that kind of thing. But the truth is they do. A humble person doesn't mean you think little of yourself. That's a fool. A humble person knows if they're good and knows where they're not good, but knows that that doesn't mean that they're better intrinsically than anyone else. I might be better in math, you might be better in English, but it doesn't, the fact that I'm better in math than you are doesn't make me a better person than you. It means I was given a gift. I'm good with math. You're given a gift. You're good with English. Two different things, right? So I can be humble. I can realize everybody in this room can teach me something. Everyone in this room is just as good a person as I am. It's a matter of our effort. The fact that I have the ability to do this and you have the ability to do something else doesn't mean I have to say, oh, I can't do anything. I could be the greatest. So I could be the greatest writer in the world. I could be the greatest speaker in the world. I could be the greatest teacher in the world. And know that I'm the greatest teacher in the world. Then still be humble. Right? To think that, to be the greatest teacher in the world and say that because I'm humble, I'm not such a great teacher, that's stupid. That's not true. You don't know yourself. But to think because you're the greatest teacher in the world that you're a better person than everyone else, then that's wrong. That's arrogant. Arrogance is not knowing who you are. Arrogance is thinking that you are better than other people because of it. And so Moshe never thought he was better than anyone. Moshe didn't go running around looking for honor. Moshe was the leader that God picked to lead the Jewish people out. He was the perfect example of a leader. He was not the perfect example of a speaker. Moshe was not a great speaker, right? But he was a great leader. So he knew that. So when Korach says to him, you want all the honor for yourself, it's like the most ridiculous thing to say to Moshe. It's the opposite. It's like, it's like you get to a person who's 300 pounds overweight and you tell them you are the biggest bodybuilder I ever saw. Right? What do you mean? A person's never went to a gym in their life. How would you say such a thing? It's totally absurd. You tell a 6-foot black man that you're a short white person. It makes no sense. That's not what they are. You see it. You're telling Moshe you're the most arrogant, honor-seeking person I've ever met, and you're taking all these jobs for yourself. It's totally absurd. So Moshe has nothing to say. He falls on his face. How do I argue with this guy? It's crazy what he says, right? So that's why it says that he does that. And then, of course, Moshe says back to them, okay, you think that I'm that way? He says, Rav Lechem, you have enough. You want to take over? You want to be in charge? Right? And, you're the children of Levi. You already have enough to do. You're from Levi. But okay, let's see. And then he devises a plan. And it says, he goes through this whole thing and he tells them what they should do in order to prove. And it says that they have to come, and it says that on 2:8:27, as Moshe says, through this, right? What is this? See, Moshe tells them, separate yourself from these people who are evil and get away from them. So Moshe stands up, right, and he tells them, turn away now from near the tents of these wicked men. Don't touch anything of theirs unless you die because of their sin. So the people got themselves up from near from where Korach and Dathan and Abiram lived, right, and they went away from them. Then Moshe says, through this shall you know that Hashem sent me to perform all these acts, that it's not me. Right? He says, now you're going to find out it's not me. I'm not the one who picked me. God picked me. How? If these die like the death of all men, and the destiny of all men is visited upon them, then it's not Hashem who has sent me. So these people, right, all these people who are rebelling against me, if they die like anyone else dies, sickness, murder, normal, not normal, but how people die, okay, then you can say that they died, but they died because it was time to die. So then you don't have to say God sent me. He said, but if but if Hashem were create a phenomena, if God makes a miracle, and the earth opens its mouth and swallows them, and all that is theirs, and they will descend alive to the pit, then you know these men have provoked Hashem. But if the earth actually opens up underneath these people's houses and swallows them alive, and then closes back up, then you'll know that God did this because of what they did now. That's what you'll know, because nobody dies from like that. The earth doesn't open up and swallow people, right? So the fact that God makes that miracle happen, that's how you're going to know. So I have to ask you then, here you have these 250 people that are rebelling against Moshe, and they're saying, Moshe, God didn't pick you to do this, you did it yourself. So Moshe says, all right, I'm going to prove it to you. Everyone separate from you, you 250 people. If tomorrow you're dead, like anybody dies, he says that's not because God sent me. Well, what do you mean? These 250 people are going to die, right? Moses says, so you're going to die. 250, you're going to die for rebelling against me because God picked me, right? So don't you think it's enough that he says you're all going to die? They have to die a special way. Can't they just die? 250 people die. You know, if I say somebody comes and they insult me, and I say, oh yeah, just because of that, tomorrow morning you'll be dead. And the person's dead. So is anyone going to say, oh, he just happened to die? No, they're going to say, what did you do to the guy, right? Moshe tells 250 normal people, you're going to die, right? But he says, oh, it's not enough that you have to die. You have to die in a really weird way. You can't die in a normal way. If you die in a normal way, that doesn't count. So why would he say that? Just say, if you're going to die, and anybody who sees that these guys died, you know why they died. But Moses said, the point is Moses understands that people believe what they want to believe. So if people say that Korach and his 250 men rebels against Moshe, and then they all died that night, it's not because Moshe is in charge. It's not because God wanted it to happen. There was a plague, or Moshe killed them. Something happened, but it wasn't God. You see, right? You see, because people believe what they want to believe. They see what they want to see. They do what they want to do. They don't necessarily see reality. We're all like that, but some people are like that to a real fault. And these people would be. So Moshe says, I don't want people to say that. And for all of history, they have to know God picked me. So when these people die, they're going to die in a way that nobody could say that they just happened to die. Right? You're going to know. And that's exactly what happens. The earth opens up and swallows them all. And they died. Then it says, then Hashem says to Moshe on the bottom of 826 and 827, say to Elazar, son of Aaron a Kohen, and let him pick up the fire pans from amid the fire, and he shall throw away the flame, for they have become holy. As for the fire pans of these sinners against their souls, they shall make them hammered out, blah, 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 and so forth and so on. So what happens here is that they all came, each one of these people came with it's like a little shovel, and they had spices on it, and they burnt them. Right? God wanted them. And the one who was picked, it was the correct person, his spices would burn and nothing bad would happen. The rest of them was swallowed up. Right? That's how it happened. So he now goes and he tells the Kohanim, clean up the mess. Right? So then all of the Jewish people complained against Moshe and Aaron. They said, you killed those guys. You see, you killed them. Right? Even though it happened the way I said, he says, you did it. And it was when the assembly gathered against Moshe and Aaron, they turned to the tent of meeting and they said, and then Moshe and Aaron came outside, and Hashem says to Moshe, get away from these people, and I'm going to kill them all. Take the fire pan and put it on the fire, for God is going to, it says he's going to kill them. Basically what happens now is that those 250 people who were killed, right, they were the perpetrators of the revolution against Moshe. So now what happened is that they caused an effect, and it always happens. You know, if people start grumbling, oh, we don't like the rabbi, or we don't like the teacher, whatever it is, right? And those people leave, but because they did that, people are going to start to also say, yeah, they're not so great, it's not so good, and they're going to start making light of it. And that's what happens here. These 250 people start up with Moshe that you shouldn't be in charge. They die. Now the other people are left behind, who were regular people, are starting to say, wait a minute, Moshe, you killed those people? You really are the way they say, right? And now Moshe didn't kill them, right? God did. Clearly, it wasn't Moshe. He didn't make the world open up. But that's what people do. They get like that. So he says that they all came and they want to do it. So God says, you know what? I'm going to kill these Jewish people, all of them. I'm sick of this already. The Jews, they complain they don't have food. So I've taken care of them. I give them food. Food's not good enough now. They want meat. I give them meat. They're going to go to Israel. They don't believe I can get them into the land of Israel without getting killed. They send spies. That doesn't go well, right? They want water. You got to hit a rock. They want water. You got water. Everything like they want. You know what? I'm sick of them already. The Jewish people, they don't listen to anybody. They don't do what they're supposed to do. And now they're saying that you're not in charge and that I didn't pick you and you're doing this on your own. Let's just press the reset button. Let's kill all the Jews. We'll start over again with you. Right, Moshe, you'll be the first one, and your family will be the Jewish people. Let's do that. So, Hashem tells Moshe that they should get away from him, right? So take the fire pan and put it on. And so Moshe says the following. So now Moshe doesn't want this to happen. In fact, Moshe tells God, if you do this, I don't want to be in the Torah. Take me out of the Torah. I don't want to be a part of it. He says, I am the leader of the Jewish people. I am not the first Jew. I am the leader of the Jewish people. You gave them to me. That's my job, right? You can't do this. So God said, but it's God's doing it, right? I mean, there's a plague now. People are dying. So it says, so Moshe says to Aaron, take the fire pan and put it on fire from the altar and place incense and go quickly to the assembly and provide atonement for them. For the fury has gone out from the presence of Hashem and the plague has begun. So God said, I'm going to kill off the Jewish people. He started doing it. So Moshe tells Aaron, this is what you got to do. We have to have a cure for this plague. God made a plague. We need an inoculation for the plague, right? That whatever sickness it was, people were dying from it. So Moshe says, this is the cure. Here's the cure. You take this shovel, you put incense on it, you burn the incense. When people smell the smell, they'll be fine, and the plague will end. So you say, this is an odd thing, because here God wants to kill the Jewish people. Moshe stands up to him and says, no, don't do it. God already does it anyways. So now Moshe says, okay, we got to stop it. How are we going to stop it? Burn spices. Let's make incense. That'll stop it. And it does. But how does Moshe know that burning spices will do it? And what does the burning of spices have to do with it? Why didn't Moshe just say, like, go and get this liquid and inject it into them? Or give them this food and they'll eat it and they'll be better? Why does he say burn spices? It's like burning incense. So we have to understand an important thing about incense. If you look in the laws of the temple, you have all of these laws about various sacrifices. One of the sacrifices is called the spices or the incense. It's called the ketoris, which are actually different types of spices that have fragrances. And when you burn them, they have a very strong fragrance. And it's supposed to be a very important part of the temple service. Fragrances are very, very significant, right? I mean, if you walk into the mall, you smell a fragrance, you go anywhere, you smell a fragrance, it can take you back 30 years, give you memories you don't even remember that you have, right? Like you see all the time how smell has the ability to do amazing things to people, because you smell something and it reminds you of the perfume your mother wore 30 years ago, and boom, you have a memory like you didn't even remember this story that suddenly comes to you. So in the temple, they used spices as a part of the sacrifices. And there was a law about spices. The law about spices is that it had to be made out of a specific mixture, and God told the Jewish people what that mixture was, exactly every single spice and how much that went into it. And it included some spices that smelled very good, but it had also some spices that smelled horrible, like burning sulfur, for instance. Burning sulfur smells terrible. Nobody wants to be near burning sulfur. So it has spices like that inside of this thing. It's a mixture of all these different spices. Then some of those spices smell terrible. So, you know, but God says if you want to burn spices, you have to burn exactly like I told you. If you take out any one of them, even the bad smelling ones, you're not doing it. You're subject to death. You can't do that. So what is that? So the commentators all tell us that the burning of the spices, which is a very high level of spirituality, has within it all different types of spices, good smelling, neutral, and bad. It's just like the Jewish people. The Jewish people have righteous people. You have the regular people who, you know, who try, but they're not there. Then you have people who aren't so good, people who don't mean well, people who are difficult, you know, bad people. Right? And yet, just like the spices have to be everybody together, the good and the bad, the indifferent, everybody has to be together. All of the spices have to be burnt, smell good, not smell good, in order to make the perfect fragrance that God wants. But that represents the Jewish people. That if you want to have a successful Jewish people, you have to realize that in your community you're going to have righteous people, you're going to have not so good people, you're going to have middle of the road people, but they're all necessary to be together. You have to have them all mixed together. The righteous have to be there to help those who are not so righteous. They have to do that. That's the message of the spices. That's how Moshe knew. That's how he was going to stop the plague. Because why did the plague happen? The plague happened because there was a desire that they wanted to be the leader. They want to be in charge, right? And God says, we're going to kill everybody except for you. Why not Moshe? Because he's righteous, right? But when it comes to death, you know from history, righteous people get killed and not righteous people get killed, right? Everybody can get killed in a plague. When there's a plague, it doesn't care who you are, right? It's a sickness. Everybody can get it. So just like that, so God's telling Moshe a message. And Moshe is using this message. He's telling him, when people die because of a plague, they die even if they don't deserve to die, because they got the plague. If you want to stop that from happening, right, the way you stop it is by symbolizing the Jewish people who are the good and the bad and the not so good, just like the spices, that the good ones have to be involved with the not such good ones. They must make a difference in their lives. They should reach out and help them. They should try to do something for them. And by doing that, they become a unit. They'll save the ones who are deserving to die, and then nobody will die. But if the righteous people don't help, then not only will the evil people die, but the righteous will die. So Moshe understood, I'm going to stop them from dying by using these spices, which symbolize to every person who's a righteous person that you've got to go and try to help these people. When you do that, the plague will end. And that's what happened. I've told you before, there's a famous Gemara, and the Gemara tells us the story that at the destruction of the temple, it says that God went to the angel of death and told him, you know, there's going to be a war now, and the non-Jews are going to come and destroy the temple. They're going to kill thousands and thousands and thousands of Jews. And it's your job. You're the angel of death. You're going to have to go in and do this. The Jews deserve it. But I want you to go to every righteous person before you kill anyone. I want you to put a mark on their head that shows that they're righteous. Like put a letter on their head so that you see that letter, and that way you won't kill them. Because they're righteous. They're good people. You don't want to kill righteous people. You want to kill evil people. So the angel of death says, what do you mean? Why shouldn't I kill them? And God says, because they're righteous. They didn't do anything wrong. He said, yes, they did. They didn't help the others. They didn't help the ones who are not righteous. They didn't care about them. They let them go and do what they wanted to do. And they said, you know, we're so religious, we're going to sit in our house with the doors closed, and we're going to study Torah, we're going to do mitzvahs, but we don't care about you. He said, so the angel of death says, they're just as bad. But God, they should have gone out. But God said, if they had gone out, I know the future, and I know they wouldn't have been successful. So the angel of death says back to God, yeah, that's true. They wouldn't have been successful, but they didn't know it. They didn't know they wouldn't be successful. Those people had no way to know, and they had to try, and they didn't try. So God gave in. This is the only time you see where God gives in like this. He gave in, and he let them kill everybody. That's because the righteous people who know better, who can help, who can make a difference to other people, didn't do it. They chose not to participate, right? So therefore the righteous people died as well. So Moshe in this case says we're going to use the spices, which remind the righteous people that it's just as, that you have to reach out to the ones who aren't so righteous so that they should learn and they should change, because it's your responsibility. Yeah.
Oh, but in Shalach Lahav, last one and this one we read, it's I can't figure out, like, both of them, like, Hashem was going to kill so many people and Moshe stops him, right? And he's so angry, and it's like look, I mean, Moshe looks noble, like, do you know what I'm saying? Like it's like, is that how we look at people? Or like if we see people, like, can we be angry at people like Hashem is like very angry? Or our, people that you see.
When the Torah tells us to emulate God, it tells us to emulate God in his positive character traits. For instance, God kills people, right? We know, right? So we're not supposed to kill people. Right? That's not emulating God. God supports people. God clothes people who don't have clothes. He gives food to those who don't have food. We have to do that. What we call the right-handed, or the positive attributes of God, is how we emulate him. We don't emulate him negatively. So we don't do that.
Isn't it's like, it reminds me of Yitzchak, and that like he's supposed to kill his son. Like, it seems so contrary to that. Like,
well, in Abraham's case, it was contrary. It was a test to see if Abraham would be prepared to do it. Not that he would actually do it, but he prepared to do it. If God tells him, you shouldn't kill your children, and then he says to him, I want you to kill your child, is he going to listen? If he was prepared to listen, then he passed the test. He was not ever going to kill him.
Okay, I understand. I'm just saying, as a mother, when you read it, it's like, it's impossible to even read that. Like, it's hard.
Sure. And for Sarah, it was the same.
Painful.
When Sarah heard that her husband had killed her son, because she heard it had happened, she died. She couldn't handle it. That's true.
Like, it's just shocking to me. Like, I read this, it's happened probably more than these 2 times. And Hashem says, I'm going to kill everybody. I'm so angry. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, but we're not supposed to. Yeah, like you said, the negative traits. But it's there, right?
Right, but if God fails, for instance, let's say you had this story of the spies and God killed everybody. Would there have been a rebellion? No, they'd be dead, right?
Yeah.
So for the soul of the individual who went from being part of the spies to becoming part of the rebellion, their soul was no worse off because they died. It was actually better off. So if God looking at it from the betterment of the individual and for the destiny of what the Jewish people are for, so he has a grounds to say, I got to start over. These people failed me. They did not do what they were supposed to do. I have to start over. So that's how he's looking at it. It's a benefit for the people, and it's a benefit for the purpose of the world. Moshe, on the other hand, says, no, I'm going to go beyond the law. I'm going to be responsible for these people. And in the end, the Jewish people come through. But we see that in the beginning, that's not the case. Now remember, God knows the end. God knows he's not going to kill them. He says he will, and if Moshe hadn't stopped him, then God would know he did. But he didn't do it, and he knows he didn't do it. So therefore, we have to understand this more as a lesson than an actual action. Okay? And it's a lesson in Moshe. Because here Moshe complains to God in just last week's Parsha. What am I, a nursemaid that I got to walk around with a baby at my breast all the time? Right? That's, in other words, the Jewish people are like a baby. They don't care about anybody. They just want to eat all the time, and they make a mess. And you gave these people to me. You want me to do this all the time? I got to walk around with them? Right? But nevertheless, when it's time to stand up for him, he does it. That's the idea.
Okay.
What about the Black Plague?
What about
the
it?
kill.
What?
Sorry?
The Black Plague.
What do you mean? We couldn't have all been killed. We wouldn't be here today.
Oh, so right.
No, the Black Plague affected the Jews less than others, but that was simply for medical reasons. But there were a lot of people killed.
The other thing you're saying, like for example, there's sects of Judaism and they really keep to themselves. Is that not technically the right thing?
In my opinion, it's not the best way. they certainly have a grounds, because they can say, we have our community of 100,000, 200,000 people. We keep to ourselves, but that's 200,000 people keeping to themselves is not really keeping to yourself, right? We're just keeping to like-minded people. So I can understand if that's what they said. That's not my opinion, but they certainly, I can't say that they're evil. They have a basis. They're also saying that the world around us is so corrupt that in order for us to stay holy, we have to stay as much away from that world. Not because it's good to stay away from the world. It's just the world has gotten so bad that now we have to live with that. But before, when the world wasn't so bad, we wouldn't say this. That could be what they say as well. But it's not the way I do it. So now what's happened is that they went and they take these spices, and he goes out. Now, we already had 14,000 people die, but then it stopped because Moshe did this with Aaron. And that ended. But now you have these people who want to say that Aaron shouldn't be the head of the Kohanim. So Moshe says, okay, you should go and get every person who could be in the place of the Kohen should go and they take their staff. Like each household, right? Each family had a staff. There was the first members, like let's say the first part of that family, and it was handed down. So they should take their staff, and they're going to come in the morning and put their staff out, and they're going to come back, and the one that is the correct one is going to blossom. Now these are dead pieces of wood, right? They're canes. They're not going to blossom. They'll only blossom with a miracle. So it says that it says in here on 831, right? So that you should, all the leaders according to the family's house, each man shall you write on his staff, and the name of Aaron you should write on the staff of Levi. And for there shall be one staff for the head of their fathers. You shall lay them in the tent of meeting before the ark, where I will meet with you. It shall be that the man whom I shall choose, his staff will blossom. This is God speaking. Where I shall cause to subside from upon me the complaints of the children of Israel when they complain against you. This is going to stop them from complaining against you, Aaron. Moshe spoke to them, and everyone got a staff, right, for each leader. Moshe laid the staffs in the outside of the ark. On the next day, Moshe came and behold, the staff of Aaron from the house of Levi blossomed. It had a blossom and a bud and almonds on it. Moshe brought all the staffs from Hashem, right, and they saw, and each man took his staffs, right. So then it says that Hashem says to Moshe, bring back the staff of Aaron, and we're going to keep it as a sign for the future, so people should know that this was done, that this happened, right? And so that's the next one. So what's happening here is that each one has a staff. I'm going to be the high priest. I want to be the Kohen Gadol, so I put my staff down, right? And God says, it doesn't matter what they do. I picked Aaron already, but we're going to prove it. So everyone puts their staff down with their name on it. Aaron's is right in the middle, right, as it tells us. And then at the end, they come back, and Aaron's has blossoms and flowers and buds on it, while everybody else's looks the same. So there are a couple of questions about it. The first is, okay, God made a miracle. That's fine. So you made it blossom, like it was alive. So that's a very nice symbol. But why it says it had blossoms and buds and almonds. So if you know how trees work, right, you go outside in the spring, you have trees have blossoms. You don't find a tree that has blossoms and buds and final fruit, like an apple, right? It blossoms in the spring. Apples don't come until the fall. So, like, it takes a while to grow. You don't have a tree with all three. So you have one. Today you go outside, look at the tree, it's all blossoms. And you go out another month, it's all buds. And you go out another month, it's all apples. So how is it that you have all three at the same time? That in and of itself is a miracle, right? That they have all different kinds on the tree. So that first thing shows you something different. And secondly is, why almonds? Why does the staff have almonds on it? You could have anything on it. You could have pomegranates. Like, why almonds? So the commentaries tell us that according to the Gemara says that there's two types of almonds, and they have different blessings. And this is why the Gemara talks about it. It says that one type of almond, when it's on the tree and it's just starting to grow, it's very bitter. But when it's fully ripened, it's sweet. Those are the almonds that we eat, right? When they're small, they're bitter. When they're finished, they're sweet. There's another kind of almond that when it's small, it's sweet. But when it's fully ripened, it's very bitter. We don't eat those. I don't know what they do with them. I don't even know if they still exist. But in the days of the Gemara, they had such a thing, and the different types of almonds. So if that's the case, so the almonds that we're talking about here, right, are the ones that start out small, and then they're bitter, and then they become sweet, because that's the way that Torah tells us to look at the world, right? Like these almonds. That's why you had a mixture of the buds and the flowers and the almonds, because it's showing you that when it all begins, it's not necessarily sweet, but at the end result of the almonds, it is sweet. And that's how life is, right? It's telling us a message. The message in Judaism is that there's no such thing as instant spirituality. There's no such thing as buying spirituality. No such thing as just waking up and saying, I had a spiritual experience. It doesn't happen. That's all in our head. There's what they call an epiphany, where you suddenly wake up and you had this spiritual appearance. God spoke to you, right? These ideas today don't happen. The way you have a spiritual experience is by working at it. You work on yourself and you build yourself up slowly, one step at a time, and you get to that. That's the symbol of the blossoms and the little buds and then the full-grown almond, because you have to go through steps. The fact that we have the two different type of almonds here, we're saying that ultimately it's the end result that's significant. It's not necessarily the bottom line that's important. The process is important, but you go through this process, you develop into something that's positive, and that's how we are. We work day to day to try to improve ourselves. The end result is we've improved ourselves. You don't just wake up and say, today I'm going to keep the whole Torah, because you won't. It doesn't work. You have to say, today I'm going to do this much, and tomorrow I'm going to do this much, and then this much, and this much, and then you get to the goal. And you realize, you look back and you say, look how much I've changed. That's what that symbolizes. So really the entire rest of the discussion, it deals with a couple of things, but the whole basis of what we're learning here with Korach has to really do with the personality of this person. Now, there's a few other references in different places that talk about Korach, that I talk about some. One of them is famous, is in the Ethics of Our Fathers, in Pirkei Avos, and it says that you should not be like it says like this. It says, there are arguments for the sake of heaven which will last. There are arguments that are not for the sake of heaven, which in the end will be destroyed. What is an argument for the sake of heaven? Is the argument between Hillel and Shammai. What is an argument that is not for the sake of heaven? Is the argument of Korach and his followers. That's what it says. So let's see. What does it mean first, an argument for the sake of heaven? So the argument for the sake of heaven is when two people have a disagreement. But the disagreement is not personal. The disagreement is for what's good, what's the best. What's the best for everyone? What's the best for the Jewish people? What's the truth that God wants from us? But it's not self-serving. It's otherwise, and it doesn't get personal. It doesn't get ugly. It's a difference of opinion, and that's what Hillel and Shammai did. Hillel and Shammai were two great rabbis. They were the great rabbis of their generation, and they had differences of opinion in almost everything. But Hillel and Shammai respected each other. They both believed that each other were within the boundaries of Torah. They just didn't follow the ways that each other did, but they believed that each other had a basis for what they said. In fact, whenever there was an argument, Hillel would first express the opinion of Shammai before he expressed his own opinion, to show that they had validity. That disagreement in an area of Torah, do you have to have 3 inches or 4 inches? Do you have to do it 3 times or 5 times? All of these types of things these are arguments for the sake of truth, for the sake of knowing God's will. So they're not fighting each other. They just have differences of opinion. That is an argument for the sake of heaven. And that argument will last forever. It doesn't mean that the argument lasts forever. The result of the argument lasts forever, because the two people involved aren't calling each other names. They're not insulting each other. They're not hurting each other. They have nothing to gain by their opinion being right. They simply are expressing what they believe is true, and then they discuss it. They have reason to talk to each other. The next one is it says that what's a argument that's not for the sake of heaven? That's Korach and his followers. Now, the first problem with that statement is that in the case of Hillel and Shammai, you have two sides. You have Hillel and you have Shammai. Hillel says black, Shammai says white, right? Mm-hmm. That's an example of that we have Hillel and Shammai. But Korach and his followers are the same side. You should say it's the argument of Korach and Moshe. But don't say Korach and his followers, because they both are the same opinion. So how is it that you have an argument of Hillel and Shammai? That's two different opinions. That makes sense. But the argument of Korach and his followers is not an argument. Korach and his followers are on one side. Everybody else was on the other side. So what is it? The Mishnah is written in a way that's not making sense. It's changing how it does it. So there are many answers to this. One of them is that because Korach and his followers were in it for themselves, no matter what Korach said, Korach wanted to be the boss. That's what he wanted. So everything he said was an illusion, just to convince people that he should be the boss. He could say, me, I don't have to be the boss. All the Jewish people are holy. We don't need a boss. We don't need a boss at all. When in reality, he just didn't want Moshe to be the boss so that he could be the boss. So he makes up this story, right? But he really wants to be in charge. So as Korach did that, that means that's not for the sake of heaven. It's an argument for himself. So every member of his group also wanted to be the boss. So you really have an argument between Korach and his followers. They're followers because they're using his methods to try to take over. But none of them are getting along with each other either. They're all 250 of them are fighting with each other because each one wants to be the boss. So therefore you see that it's not a funny way of saying it. You have an argument between Hillel and Shammai. Those are two different opinions that are both for the sake of heaven. You have the argument of Korach and his followers. Those are 250 different opinions. Each one says, I'm in charge. And therefore you see that that is an example of doing things for the wrong reason, but it's exactly the same idea of differences of opinions. It's not that they agreed. They didn't agree. They fought with each other. That's one. Another one is when you have an argument between Hillel and Shammai, Hillel respects the opinion of Shammai, even though he thinks it's wrong. Shammai respects the opinion of Hillel. One of the ways we know is that students of the two schools used to marry into each other's families, and that wouldn't have happened if they believed they were wrong. They would have said, "You're not practicing Judaism," right? So they would do that. So with the case of Korach and his followers, is because Hillel and Shammai they respected each other. Korach and his followers didn't respect anybody. So when you say Hillel and Shammai, you have two different opinions. Each one respects the other. Then you have Korach and his followers on one side. Who's on the other side? Nobody, because they didn't respect anyone. Whoever it was they fought with, they demeaned. They insulted them. In fact, the Midrash says that they even accused Moshe of adultery. They were that crazy in the things they said. They tell the most humble man in the world that you're an egotist, you're arrogant, which makes no sense. And then they tell him that he's having an affair. He's had relations with somebody else's wife. They make these statements that were just painful. They were just hurtful. They were just insulting in order to throw him off guard. And really it is because they don't care. There is no other side. My opinion is the only opinion. I don't care. You disagree with me? That doesn't matter. You're wrong. There's nothing to talk about. You're wrong. That's what they said. So therefore, another way of understanding is that Korach and his followers are on one side. There's no difference on the other side. They don't listen. Hillel and Shammai, they listen to each other. And that's the difference between a good type of argument and not a good type of argument, is that each one listened while the other one didn't. So that's another example. Okay. Then we talk about some of the various sacrifices and arrangements that are made. I want to talk about one right here. Let's see.
Wasn't Korach a good man initially?
Yes, Korach was, but he became corrupted.
Yeah.
Now, an interesting point is that Korach and Moshe are examples in the Medrash of the two richest people in the world. They were the richest people in the history of the world. Moshe was rich because when they accused Moshe that you want to be the boss for the wrong reason, like why does a person want to be the boss? Because they can steal money. I mean, look at all the countries in the world where a guy is a prime minister, he's the head of a country. What do? The treasury is their own money. Right? So they steal everything. You look at, they say Sadat had billions of dollars, Arafat had millions of dollars. All these people steal money from the country, right? Because they're the head of the country. So they said, Moshe, you want to be the head of the Jewish people because you're going to steal all the money. Right? So God made Moshe very rich, so nobody could say that. How did he make him rich? It says that when they had the second 10 commandments, the first 10 commandments God gave to Moshe, they were a finished product. They were like sapphires, right, that had the words carved into it. So when Moshe got the second set, he had to make them. They weren't the same. God didn't make them. Moshe had to go up in the mountain, and God gave him the unfinished sapphire, and he says, now you got to knock into it the letters. So he did. And he says, and now Moshe, all of the pieces that came out, that you chiseled out, those are big pieces, right, and they're sapphire. You can have them all. It's yours. In other words, it's symbolizing that Moshe was a very rich man, so that nobody could ever accuse him of wanting to be in his position in order to be rich, right? So therefore, so we know that Moshe was a rich man. We know Korach was a rich man. But look at the difference in the two, right? How they were. The difference is because, as I started in the beginning, Korach was a taker. Vayikach Korach, it says Korach took. Right? Everything Korach did was so that he would have money and power and he would be arrogant. Everything Moshe did was to help the Jewish people. As we see, God's going to kill all the Jewish people. If God killed all the Jewish people, Moshe would get everything. Right? Everything would be his. He'd have all the money from the Jewish people. Everything that any Jew had, he could have. He's the only one left. Everyone else is dead. Right? But Moshe says, no, I don't want that. I'm not in this for the money. I'm not in this for the honor. You gave me a job to do. I'm going to do my job, and you can't stop me from doing my job. That's how Moshe looked at it. Korach, on the other hand, looked at everything's what can I take for me. I want the job. I want the money. Right? So here you see in Korach's case, money corrupted him. It destroyed him. And in Moshe's case, it uplifted him. It made him even able to do more. And that's a perfect example of how money, right, is not good, is not bad. And we always see this expression, money is the root of all evil. It's just not true. Money is not ethical. Money is money. It's a piece of silver, a piece of gold. It's money. It has no ethics. The person who uses the money has ethics. You can be an ethical person and use your money for good, right, and to do good things and to uplift you. Or you can become a degraded, corrupted person through your money. You use it for the wrong purposes. It's all up to you. Korach used it for the wrong purposes, and he dedicated his life to becoming rich. Moshe became rich, but that wasn't why he did it. His life was to become the leader of the Jewish people, to help them, to guide them, to bring them to the land of Israel. Therefore, his being rich helped him do that. It was uplifting. So the same dollar that corrupted Korach, that same dollar uplifted Moshe. So here you see that a dollar really doesn't it's not up to the dollar, it's the person. That's why the Medrash says that when Yaakov saw the dream of the ladder, right, he had that ladder, the top of the ladder, it says it was Moshe, and the bottom of the ladder was Korach. Right, and it was going up and down and up and down. Why? Because Korach, the same ladder, right, that brought Moshe up, took Korach down. What was that ladder? It was money. Money brought him up. Moshe used it as a tool to be a better person, while Korach, it corrupted him and made him into a worse person. And we see it. We all know people who have been successful, and some of those people who are successful become impossible to deal with. They're arrogant. Why is it that you ever hear, what is the nicest thing you can say about a celebrity, about a very rich person, a person who's famous in a certain area? The nicest thing people say about them is, he's a regular guy. He's just like us. Right? And that's considered praiseworthy. Why? Because those types of people very often don't think that they're regular people. They think they're better than us, and they act that way. And therefore, when they don't act that way, that means the money didn't corrupt them. Right? They're still good people. They're the same people they were before they had money. And that's not easy. That takes effort, and they did it. And their money is helping them be better people. You have other people who become rich. Right? Primarily, you see it more often with people who inherit richness rather than who do it themselves. And these people are born with the money, they live their whole life with lots of money, and they don't even understand what it means to not have money. And they're often arrogant and corrupt, and they use money for all types of terrible things. And it knocks them down. And you have both sides. That's what the Torah is telling us. It's like the ladder going up and down. Money is not good and money is not bad. Money is a tool. And if you want to be a difficult person, then money will help you be one. And if you want to become a righteous, caring, giving person, then money will help you be that way too. But it's not the money that makes the decision, it's us. That's really what it's telling us.